So we have the theme, the calling, are you listening? And so my talk is on flowing with God. And God is always giving us beautiful examples of how not to flow with God, right? We've all had that experience where we're saying, son of a gun. Thank you, Tim. I did acknowledge you. I want you to know that. I loved your music. But God is always giving us these beautiful opportunities to see who we are not. To see who we are not. So I'm going to read something to you by Robert Adams. For those of you, you're probably not familiar with him. Most people aren't. He had a small following. He was a disciple of Ramana Maharshi, if you're familiar with him. In any case, Robert was fully self-realized, and this is what he had to say. Do not compare yourself with anyone. Do not believe that fate has dealt you a bad card and that you're suffering mentally or physically or financially or otherwise and saying, why did this happen to me? You are not to blame. You are identifying with the world, with the body, with the mind. This is the only reason you believe you're suffering. No one really suffers. I know that might be hard to believe for some, but it is the truth. If you really understood who you were, you would never believe that anything was wrong with your life. To believe something is wrong with your life is blasphemy. That is the only blasphemy that exists. When you believe you're not in the right place, when you want to change, when you think somebody is doing something to you, when you have fears, that's blasphemy. For what you are saying is this thing called God does not exist. I use God synonymously with consciousness. You think God, consciousness, does not exist and that you have to struggle for yourself. You have to overcome burdens and you have to pay the price. Even the belief that it's karmic is wrong. The best thing you can do is not react to anything, but to act from your heart with love, compassion, peace, and let the chips fall where they may. There's really a lot said in there. And some of you might not even agree with all of it. You're like, yeah, that's a little out there, Brett. I don't know. Wherever you're at is absolutely perfect. I can only stand up here and share my truth. And I'm finding more and more, well, I'll share something else that Robert Adams actually shared. He said, when you first get on your path, you begin to think, does God exist or doesn't God exist? That's kind of the first thing that people go through, and they might believe they might be an atheist or become agnostic. I went through my path of like, does God really exist or doesn't God exist? I'm open for the experience, but there's nothing really that's presented to me that's the truth. And so we go through that, and then as we start believing, and for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you, you've probably had, some kind of godly experience that opened you up. I had a very vivid dream where I was sleeping in my bed, and an angel came to the bottom of my bed, and she said to me, "So do you believe God exists?" And I hesitated, and I said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "Let me ask you again, do you believe God exists?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Never forget this moment." And about 3 days had gone by, and then as something quite often happens in our life to remind us of that, I'm like, oh, yeah, I had that dream, So for me, it really opened the door to say, there's something that happened in that dream that was more than just a dream. It opened my heart to the possibilities of what God is and who I am. So we go through this phase of maybe, at first not believing. Some people believe right off the get-go, but usually what happens is people either don't believe or they're sorting through, is this true or it isn't true? And then when we start believing, then we kind of start praying to God, and the God that we're praying to is a God that's sitting somewhere up there in a big chair. I'm not sure where the somewhere would be, but it's a God that we have kind of humanized, if you will, because the mind can't understand anything different than that in that moment. These phases, by the way, are all absolutely perfect. It's just life unfolding as it needs to unfold. And then we get to the point where we say, man, I think I've done enough suffering. There's got to be something else out there. And we might find ourselves at a Unity Church, which does such a wonderful job of getting us to look within ourselves for God. And so there's this beautiful thing that happens, and you feel it in here, right? You feel there's something that we walk away better than when we came. And to me, Unity does an excellent job of that. That's why I like speaking at Unity churches. They allow me to say most everything I want to say. There may be a few restrictions. Not really. I've been graced with being able to speak my truth, and it's been well received most of the time. And so we get to the point where we're looking within ourselves. And then I want to offer something in addition to that. We talk about that we're one with God, but to actually have that experience is a little different than hearing it conceptually. But I will tell you this, the more and more that I end up going within, the more and more that I keep meditating and I just become aware of life and I stop fighting against life, I see that there's, I would ask the question, how far do we have to go to experience God? A lot of people go to India, climb a mountaintop, which is fine and perfect. And maybe they'll get something out of it just because they're on this beautiful journey and this commitment to discover something deeper. And they most likely will have some kind of experience. But do we need to climb a mountain? Do we need to go somewhere else? Do we need to walk 10 miles? Do we even need to move one single inch to experience God? We talk about God omnipotent, omniscient. God is everything, everywhere. How can God even be 1 inch from who you are? I would share with you, invite you to look at, is there any distance whatsoever between you and God? And the more you begin to come in touch with that, the more you begin to look further and you begin to question, who am I? Which is one of the greatest questions you can ever ask yourself. Who am I really? Where we get hooked up at is, I've said these things so many times, maybe it'll come across a little differently with a different vibration, because don't get caught in just the words that I share, because there's something within me that knows something deeper about who I am than I've ever known. And it's feeling my pure essence that feels so godly, it's that statement I think that most or all of us in here have heard, that everything you are seeking is you. You are the one that you've been seeking all along. And the more you start connecting with that, you start to feel that there is no difference between you and God, that you are that. Now, I used the word blasphemy earlier. Some of you may be thinking, that sounds a little bit blasphemous to me. And it's okay if you're having that experience. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm truly not. I'm here to share some words that will hopefully tug at your heart to explore something deeper about the possibility of who you are. And that possibility is beautiful. So I got a little distracted because I looked up the clock as I said that, and it was 11:11 for those of you who like numbers there. The more we go within, we begin to see God has been there, been this all the time. There has never been a time where we were not part of God or God. There has never been that time. And so we look for God, which is fantastic, by the way, to look for God, to seek God, and to search God. And as I said in the meditation, until you come to the point where the seeker is swallowed up by the beautiful truth of who you are, that you are literally everything that you've been looking for. That Jesus, that Buddha, that Krishna, all these great teachers are just another aspect of who you are. And the combination, we have given this title called God. Some give it the title of love. If you're familiar with Ram Dass, He wrote some beautiful books, but Be Here Now was one of the really cornerstones for a lot of people when they got on their path. And Ram Dass simply describes ourselves as pure conscious awareness. Loving conscious awareness. Loving conscious awareness. You know, I mentioned that our mind and our body, and this is what I want to say about our mind and our body, gets in the way of us discovering a deeper truth of who we are. Because we're so strongly identified with being the body and mind that we're identified with, I'm the one that did this, I'm the one that made this choice, I'm the one, and I'm the one, and I'm the one. It's all these I's that are all tied in with programming from the head. All these experiences that we've had over time growing up, they have kept pulling us in a direction to come up with, this is who Brett is, this is who Joan is, this is who Susan is. You know, it's coming up with this idea and this self-image, but I'm here to invite you to look beyond that, because I assure you that it's that self-image, that personality, that is the very thing getting in the way of seeing that you are already the truth in everything you're looking for. That's all. I was trying to think if this happened before the last time I spoke or not, but it's presenting itself, so I'll share it. I was laying in bed a few months ago, and I quite oftentimes meditate in bed, because if you want to meditate, by the way, when you first wake up in the morning, you're in between that sleeping state and that waking state, and you can really connect with Spirit quite nicely during that time. And so I was doing this, and then I heard Spirit say, notice your breath. And I go, oh, okay. You know, as a meditation teacher for a long time, I'm like, well, I've taught this so many times, but okay, let me just notice the breath. I look at my body breathing, and I go, oh, okay, that's different. Because I recognize the awareness, wasn't the one doing the breathing. It was my body simply breathing all by itself, by the grace of God. And so when I started noticing that my body was doing the breathing, it helped me to separate the idea, the belief that I am this physical form in any way. And then it took me just into a deep place of awareness to just witness this body breathing. And so it was just very powerful and profound for me, and it hasn't left me, because I continue to notice when I'm breathing, I say I'm breathing, and it's not me breathing. It's the breath of God, consciousness coming through me. It's my body breathing. It's something else, but in all these times when we're listening to our mind and we're observing our body, there's always something that is aware of all of these things. There's always an awareness involved. Like I said, that nothing can exist without being conscious and aware. Even a baby, right? Even a baby is conscious and aware. They are aware that they exist. Without reading any books, without listening to teachers or parents or ministers, the baby is there. And you tell me if you haven't had this experience. You look into these babies' eyes these days, there's a new crop coming in. I'm telling you, these babies are so conscious and aware right off the get-go. I mean, Connie, do you remember, it used to be where babies' eyes were closed for a while when they were born a long time ago, right? Their eyes would stay closed, if I remember right, for days. Now I'm telling you, these babies come in and their eyes are just like open. And then if you look in your eyes and that baby looks in your eyes, you go, oh yeah, they're home, they get it. And then, of course, the game of life is to begin to collect all these ideas about who we are. I don't know that these babies come in and are collecting that many ideas, because they're probably just going to stay there. I don't know. We'll see where it all goes, but there is definitely a massive awakening that's taken place. And the babies that are coming in are part of that, and that's in my estimation. But my point is that, to everything that you can observe is not who you are. Please hear those words. Anything that you're able to witness or observe is not who you are. You can witness the thoughts cannot witness you. You can witness the feelings, they can't witness you. You can witness that you have this body, it cannot witness you. Now, some people might confuse the mind and say, well, my mind's aware of me. No. The mind is basically a giant computer that records all these incidences and experiences and says, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. And it comes up with a culmination of different ideas that it says, this is how life is supposed to be, this is how you're supposed to be, this is how they're supposed to be. This is when we get into all of our troubles, right? It's because we're all trying, because we're listening to our heads, and our heads saying, they need to be this way. I don't like it. We see this a lot in politics today, right? And it's so divisive because we're so opinionated, like, no, my way is right, and I fall into it too. I'm not going to get myself off the hook here because I went to go visit my brother. He was up north in Oscoda, Michigan, which is where I grew up at. He said, hey, I'm going to be camping. Linda's not coming with me, his wife, and said, would you like to come up and stay? And I said, I had to think about it for a while. I said, okay, sure, I'll come up. And I'm like, I'm just staying one night, though. I told my wife and son because I don't know where to go with my brother. We have an agreement to not talk politics. What did we do? We talked politics. My brother is just so self-righteous. He's so arrogant. And I really hate the fact that he mirrors me. The whole world is reflecting exactly what we need to experience. That is the truth. I'm not making that up. Try it for yourself and see. I know we say, yeah, but this person is just so arrogant in that. What keeps us from loving and accepting them exactly the way they are? Because there's programming in our head that says, no, that's not right. I know what love is, and this is not it. Right? But we don't know what love is. We don't really know what love is. We talk about unconditional love. We talk about unconditional love for our kids, And of course, there's love that's there to some degree, but what if our kid shoots our partner or a sibling or something like that? Would you still love them? And that's an extreme, and I'm sorry. Maybe that's crossing a line. I'm not sure. But my point is we can never really truly love until we step past the head and we move into the heart. Because the head is always going to say, yeah, I love them, but there's this, it might be a little piece, and some it's a lot. But there's always something here. If you're recognizing yourself, if you're identifying with that you're part of your head, your mind, and your body, you can never escape the suffering and the stress. You can never really fully be free. You cannot do it. That's why, you've probably heard me say this phrase. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is when they speak of the peace that passeth all understanding. The peace that passeth all understanding is because you can't understand who you are. It's not about understanding. It's not about, you can read books, that's fine, but it's not about gaining more knowledge. Actually, if it's anything, it's about unlearning all the crap. I know that's a very spiritual word, and that gets in the way of the truth of who you are. Who you are, everything you are right now is peace, is joy. I think Tricia, I'm not sure where she's at, but she did a beautiful talk on the pledge and talking about the beauty of who we are. We can't escape these things, and there's no reason to fight it. So I talk about, flowing with God. To me, I don't know any better way to flow with God than, first of all, than to recognize the truth of who you are. That is the ultimate flowing with God. But meanwhile, to help you get there for wherever you're at is stop trying to figure things out. Stop trying to figure things out. That is the head that says, I need to know what this is. I need to figure this problem out. No, you really don't need to figure it out. It's when you are trying to figure it out that it gets the head busy and you're able to not be as still as you like. Be still and know that I am God. One of the ways of being still is to really stop trying to figure it out. How many people have ever lost keys before or something important, and you're like, I got to figure out where I left them, and you're trying to do all this stuff, and then finally you go, okay, forget it. And then what happens? We find the keys. Right, exactly. So I'm suggesting to you to not go looking around or finding all the answers. Just keep asking. It's okay to seek, by the way. It's okay to seek. It's an important part of the process. But to just understand that you don't have to, try to figure it out, to get the head involved. So that's one thing to help you flow with God. Stop trying to figure it out. When the answer is needed, it will be provided. Anytime you need that answer, it will show up for you when and where you need it, always. God is not here to punish us. God is not here to create suffering. God is bringing us experiences that are getting in the way of the truth of who we are, which is creating suffering, because we're saying, this is what God has brought me, but I don't like it this way. There's a few different ways to say that. Eckhart Tolle says it's being here but wanting to be there. Or stress is wanting life to be different than what it is. I say that all the time because it's so important for us to recognize, if you want to flow with God, stop fighting God. Stop fighting life. It's trying to swim upstream when the river is clearly taking you back to the ocean of God. Can you surrender into that stream? Can you trust that you will be given what you need? You'll be given the life raft, the life preserver, whatever you need, you will be given. And it's all to help you to realize that you and God are one. I think I want to leave it right there. Thank you so much.
Hey, it's Reverend Mike here. I just wanted to stop for a moment before you get on with your day, and thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. It means the world to us, and I just wanted to let you know, if there's anything that we can do to make your experience even better, please do not hesitate to reach out by going to our website. I also wanted to offer you the opportunity for us to get together and sit down so I could get to know you a little bit better and answer any questions that you have. I can either do that by either getting together in person, have a cup of coffee, or we can meet online via Zoom. If you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me at michael@courage2thrive.com. And lastly, if you find these messages are helping you, we would be tremendously grateful if you'd consider donating to the center. The best and the easiest way to do that is simple. Just go to our website. Again, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. Hope you're doing well. God bless, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye now.